Deadpool and Wolverine. Does it have one of the best, if not the best, opening scene to a movie of all time? Hello again, ladies and gents, and welcome to another review of the opening scene to a movie. I am on a quest to find the greatest opening scenes or intros to TV shows, video games, and movies, and in this journey, a fan recommended doing the opening scene to Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine. Ever since the dramatic conclusion to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine character in Logan and the comical and action-packed thriller of Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool movies, fans have been salivating over these two possibly making an appearance together, and this movie finally delivered it. Now, while there's a general consensus that this movie is well worth the watch, reviewing the movie is not the purpose of this video. Our purpose is to review the opening scene to this film and to try our best to determine whether or not the intro is poor, average, or the absolute greatest we've ever seen. To help with this review, we will be looking at three specific categories. If you're familiar with these videos, then you'll know that these three categories are the music or sound, the storytelling, and how captivating as a whole the intro is. We will be giving each of these categories a score out of 10, then adding all these scores up to get a final total score. And if there's something else about this intro that doesn't quite fit into any of these categories but helps to elevate it in some way, then we will be awarding bonus points as well. We've got a lot to unpack here, folks, so sit back and relax and enjoy another Too True SMEG review. It's music time! In this intro, there's really like two different waves of music that take place. We'll start with the main song, which everyone will remember this opening scene for, which is the song that's playing as Deadpool is killing all these dudes. For those of us who are 80s or early 90s babies, the opening scene takes us back 25 years to NSYNC's hit song, Bye Bye Bye. Now, why was this song chosen for this gruesome scene of Deadpool slaughtering these men? Well, you see, Deadpool's entire facade is using comedy, humor, and lightheartedness to dampen, lessen, or overshadow all of the brutal and sometimes senseless things he's doing. And this opening scene is a perfect example of that. The men he's killing, sure, maybe they deserve this beatdown, but if you really pay attention to the grotesque ways in which he's killing his enemies, you notice that many of these dudes are experiencing extreme pain as they're being absolutely slaughtered. In inserting the upbeat Bye 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 song into the scene, it is a perfect way of introducing once again our beloved anti-hero to us. The other phase of this music in this intro is when Deadpool is narrating his little prologue of the movie. The short little background music, which sounds like a mix of a xylophone and some other instruments, again, creates a feeling of lightheartedness and childlessness, setting the mood perfectly for this movie. Now, are there any downsides to the music in this opening scene? It's hard to identify a lot, but there are a couple of things in using the Bye 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 song which does weaken this intro just a hair. One is that using any hip hop song in any movie is almost always a safe choice. Safe choices aren't necessarily bad if it fits perfectly with everything else going on, and while this song choice is a great fit, it just doesn't feel like the absolute perfect fit for this kind of a movie. It feels a bit like using a safe and predictable nostalgic choice to win over the audience right away, relying too much on our love of the song for enjoyment rather than what original things the scene has to offer. The other issue, which is perhaps more glaring, is that in using this hit song, it does overshadow some of the other comedic things happening in this scene. Not terribly, but we're more focused on singing along with the song that it takes away from the limited dialogue spoken in the fight scene, and we can miss some of the funny gags taking place here. So the final score we will be giving the opening scene for music is 8 out of 10. However, we are not done here yet because a bonus point must be given. Yes, bonus points are usually given at the end of the review, but this one is just an extra special detail that is related to the music that is worth mentioning in its own way. Back in X-Men 2, when Logan is driving in the car with Rogue, the conversation gets a little awkward and so Pyro turns on the radio, which then blasts the Bye 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 song. You can see Logan is annoyed by it and the song is turned off immediately. This is just another little nod to the Logan and Wolverine we all fell in love with over the past 2 decades. And it also reminds us that this song isn't chosen at complete random either. There's some purpose and meaning to it, even if it's very insignificant. So for these reasons, we will be awarding an extra bonus point to the music score, bringing the total to 9 out of 10. So now let's discuss the storytelling. When analyzing this category, we're really looking at several things such as, is there a story being told, does the story make sense, and is it easy to follow? And does the story make us even more interested in what's to come later on? Well, we learned pretty quickly in Deadpool breaking the fourth wall that due to the changes in Marvel and Disney, he essentially feels that he deserves being allowed to team up with another superhero. In this case, Logan or Wolverine. Unfortunately, in his journey to finding Logan, Deadpool instead finds Logan's remains and expresses his disappointment with Logan himself as a now dead skeleton and the audience. As he's living briefly in this world of what ifs, suddenly some men in armor teleporting through orange portals appear and threaten Deadpool. Deadpool promises not to use his weapon to fight these armored men and finds this as an opportunity to fight alongside, really more like with, the remnants of Logan's decomposed body. And then we are given about 2.5 to 3 minutes of this fighting sequence with Deadpool using the pieces of Logan's skeleton to kill all of these armored men. Overall, it's a decent story that keeps the audience engaged. In watching this for the first time, it made me curious on how Wolverine was going to make his appearance to fight alongside Deadpool, which is a good thing you want to impress upon audiences in the first few minutes because it makes them desire more of the movie. So many successes when it comes to the storytelling aspect. However, the story being told here is very simple and very easy to follow. Maybe a little too easy. Not that the opening scene has to be overly complex to be great, but it does help when there has to be some actual thinking power involved on the audience's part because it allows the audience to be involved and intrigued that much more in piecing together the more subtle things being told. Another hindrance to the storytelling is that we as an audience have no idea why these armored men came to fight Deadpool. Sure, we find out as the movie progresses, but it can leave the audience a bit confused or feeling like they missed important information in a previous Marvel film or something, ultimately feeling a bit disconnected from the film. So when taking all of these things into consideration, the total score we will be giving the opening scene for storytelling is 7.5 out of 10. And lastly, perhaps the most important of the three categories, how captivating as a whole is the intro. Typically, the most captivating scenes in movies are when something crazy is happening, like a fight between good and evil or an intricate bank robbery taking place. But the thing this intro has going for it, in fact the thing the entire intro has going for it, is that Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is absolutely hilarious, and that his dialogue is much more entertaining than the action itself. Sure, his humor may not be for everyone, and sometimes his breaking the fourth wall can be a bit of an exposition dump on the audience, but his dark humor and the way he gives jabs at Disney, Marvel, and just about everything else is quite hilarious. And when he starts flipping out and cursing due to finding Logan's dead body at the bottom of the grave, one cannot help but laugh out loud. So while the first couple of minutes or so of this intro are just of Deadpool giving a brief narration, it's actually the most captivating part because his dialogue is just comedy gold. As the scene progresses into the fight scene, that's actually when it becomes a bit more stale and unengaging. The In Sync song helps in keeping us a bit engaged throughout some of this fight, as well as some of Deadpool's dancing and odd techniques of taking out his enemies. But after the first 30 seconds or so of this fight, we're just sort of seeing the same old thing over again. Deadpool continues to dance, kill, and be silly, which again feels repetitive and a bit boring. So for these reasons, the score we will be giving the intro for captivating is 7.5 out of 10. Personally, I think this is a great intro overall and a great movie, but I even have to admit to myself that as the fighting just continues to go on, I feel ready to move on to the next thing. So let's wrap this review up. In conclusion, when we add all of these scores up, the final total score we get is 24 out of 30, which averages out to a nice and clean 8 out of 10. Not a bad score by any means, and actually a well-respected score. My final thoughts on this intro. While I personally don't believe this is anywhere near to being one of the best intros of all time when it comes to a movie, it definitely is one of the best we could have possibly had for a Deadpool movie. And in fact, of all three Deadpool movies, it's arguably the best of the three. And more than that, it's an intro that we'll never forget about, at least for a very long time to come. Well, there you have it, a full review of the opening scene to Deadpool and Wolverine. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content like this. If you disagreed with any of this analysis, you can even leave a dislike and share in the comments where we may have gotten it wrong. And if you have any opening scenes or intros to TV shows, video games, or movies that you love and would like to be reviewed in the future, please feel free to mention it in the comments and we may just add that to the list. Anyways, thank you again for sticking around for another Too True SMEG review. Until next time.